Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is a wicked little mini bike. In this video, we're going to remove the stock V-treads and upgrade the tires on our Coleman CT100U. The tires we'll be installing today are the CST 145/76 Knobbies. These are the Doodlebug replacement tires that I get from my friends over at OMB Warehouse.com. These quality 2-ply knobbies are one of my favorites to mount on these 6-inch wheels. They're a little more forgiving on the guy mounting them and also on the turf, but they still provide pretty good traction. The stock V-treads are anywhere from 13 to 13.5 inches tall, mounted and inflated. We should be expecting about 14 out of these. I'm going to get the mini bike up off the ground, probably just slide my jack under there, a couple pumps, and we'll be good. I'm going to get both of these wheels off, and I'll meet you back over there. Both of the wheels and tires on the workbench. On the rear, we're going to remove the sprocket as well as the rotor. The rear rim has the same offset on the hub on both sides. The way you can tell the difference, the brake rotor goes on the side with the valve stem. You want to pay attention to that if you were replacing a set of V-treads or something that had a direction of rotation. You wouldn't want to get it backwards when you go to install the rim back on the bike. If you did that, you'd have a really hard time trying to put air on the tire. So, a couple things to look out for. In our case, we're just trying to keep the sweet logo on the same side. Getting as much air as I can out of these things. We're going to have to break the bead next. I think I did these in a vise before. Completely flat. These are very easy to get into a benchtop vise. You want to press in next to the rim, not on it. You see, with barely any pressure, I was able to pop the bead, and it came off both sides. Sometimes it's one before the other. These things are brand new though, so is what it is. Hopefully that one's the same. This one's a better example. You can see it released on the back side, but not the front. Have to work it. Maybe you'll spin it around. Chances are I'll be able to hit it with my palm and pop that off. Yep. Got it right on the bench. Now we have to remove the tires from the rims. I'm starting at one point, and I'll get my screwdriver in to another point where there's a little hole. Oh, you seen that little flash of light? Yeah, right down in there. I'll get my screwdriver in and pry it up a little and work my way around. Hopefully I won't lose the thing and have to keep starting over. After you have about 6 inches of the bead hanging out, you don't even have to hold the pry bar. Just keep working a little bit at a time and it comes off. Now we got to do the other side. Same approach, just a little bit different. This time we're prying under the rim and pulling the rim out from the inside of the bead. If you have a bigger bar, you can get under there and you can press down on the tread and push the bead off that way. Problem with the big bar is you risk scratching the inside of the rim. I have some heat paint that's silver. I'll be able to touch that up real quick after we get the tire on. Still get the other one off. The valve stem goes inside the rim. If you're pulling things this direction, that could be an issue. Stay away from that. We're going to go this way. These were a lot easier than I thought. Off camera, maybe 4 minutes at the most. I'm going to have my logos opposite the side of my brakes, so I know the valve stem is going to go that way. It's also the direction I'm going to put this thing in. Get some soap and water over here. I'll work that around the bead, and then you can probably stuff it in there without prying too much. I got most of it in there. Just pressing down. Grab one of my gadgets over here and pry that bead up over the lip of the rim. From where I was halfway on, again I just worked a little bit on each side instead of trying to pry that whole thing, and no sweat, no bead damage. Flip it over and set the other side. This is the part where you want to get down on the ground and kneel on it. Get as much as you can and then do your pry thing. Be careful not to damage your beads. Look at that. I didn't have to pry anything. It's on there. Let's do the other one. I might be able to get this on video. I'm just stretching it with my knees. There we go. One more on this side. There we go. Swish. Wham bam bla jam, boys. No pry job. Back up on the workbench. I'm just working the beads onto the rim the best I can. I'll use 2 hands and try to get them like that on both sides. If not, a little better. This part is key to the next step, which is going to be inflating them. If the bead isn't set on the rim, it's not going to hold air and inflate. There's one. And there's two. I just took these up to 20 psi, set the bead, backed them down to 4, and I went back up to 20, and now we're at 12. I'm going to touch up those little spots where I had some scratches, and then we'll be on to the sprocket and rotor for the rear. The front, just a quick touch up. I'm going to try to get in there with my spray can and just, or I might be able to spray it in the cap and use a small brush. We'll see what happens here. It would be pretty reckless to get overspray all over this nice new tire. So we're going to go with the brush method. I didn't have a small paintbrush at hand. This is a very small job. So I just cut some bristles off of a full-size paintbrush and wrapped them up with some painter's tape. I'll take this outside where it's safely away from everything, give it a couple sprays down in the bottom, and then we'll just be able to touch things up nice and neat like the pros would do. Nah, they'd probably paint it without the tire on the rim. It's not perfect, but let it dry, give it time, a little bit of dirt. Nobody's going to know the difference. We're just protecting the bare metal. Before I go ahead with that rotor and the sprocket I mentioned, we might as well pop the bearings and give those a greasing too, especially while everything's still nice and clean and new. I'm not going crazy, just making sure we have some of our own blend in there. I know the stuff coming out the end of our gun here is high heat and it's not going to break down as easily. These aren't going to last forever, but at least they'll have their best shot. If your rubber rings on your spacer fit loose, just wrap a little duct tape under there so they can't wiggle side to side. Good to go. That won't bother anything when you're taking it out later. I have my front wheel on. It's not torqued yet, but you can see I decided to keep the logos over here on the business side. Reason being, well, it's easier to get little hints of color over here. We have some orange on our Mikuni linkage. I'm sure we can get some more somewhere else. There we go. Right there on our fuel filter. On the rotor and the sprocket, I'm reusing stock hardware, and I'm just adding a little bit of this blue thread lock gel. Alright, maybe I didn't think that through all the way. With the stock sprocket and that gold chain on there, we're not going to see a whole lot of that. but I know it's there, you know it's there, and from the right angle, everyone else will too. With the back wheel on, the last thing we do is torque the axle bolts to 20 foot-pounds. Now that is a classic looking mini bike. I haven't put a tape measure there yet, but I'd say we gained a little something. There it is. I have the mini bike propped up so that it's close to level. We're actually still favoring the kickstand a little bit, even with our piece of lumber and wrench underneath. Coleman is claiming 3.5 inches of ground clearance. So that would be with the factory V treads. The kickstand at the lowest point, even folded up, is right there. Okay, we're at 4 inches. To the bottom of the frame, we are a solid 5 1/4, about 5 3/8. I think we went up a little bit. Whether it's a 1/2 inch or a full one, it doesn't really matter, because things are always looking up when it's a work in progress. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. I want you to stay.